Hello everyone, I'm Zuzka the Craftsy Penguin, and today we are going to look at the results of my stash busting from the last year. Now let's get down to business. Did I or did I not succeed at stash busting? Well, I started this journey sort of last year in February, where before in January I entered all of my stash into my Ravelry. I had some entries there before that, but I tried to make it really systematic and have all the numbers possible in there. There are still some pieces of my stash that don't have clear numbers, but we're just kinda going with that, and those are mostly just some legacy balls of yarn that I inherited basically from my family members. So I'll show you everything in a bit, but now, what are the numbers? Well, I can tell you that although I bought yarn in this last year, which I wasn't exactly set against, but I hoped I wouldn't do that so much as I did. But still, even with the addition of the new yarn, my numbers diminished in this last year. So, if you want to know the exact numbers, I have it all written in here. I have my spreadsheets that you can export from your Ravelry stash, and I tried to calculate everything. I hope I did it right, and it seems it is all right. So I'll read out the numbers, and I will put also the significant numbers on screen so that it is really visual for you, so that you can see how much I had and how much I used up. I will be reading from my notebook. At the date that I first exported my spreadsheets from the Ravelry stash registry, I did that on January 30th last year. So this year I exported that spreadsheet again at the same date. And in the first one, a year ago, I had remaining yarn, because there was these first entries, you know, then I used something up, but remaining yarns at the beginning of the last year were 200.87 skeins of yarn. In meters, that would be 50,913.40 meters. In grams, that would be 17,652 grams of yarn. In items, meaning individual brands and kinds and colorways of yarn, I had 156 items in that spreadsheet. Now, there is also a part of that stash registry for used up yarn and for gifted or traded yarn or sold yarn. At that point, a year ago, I had one used up skein of 1000 meters, which was 250 grams. That's one yarn cake. And one gifted yarn cake with the same numbers. One skein, 1000 meters, 250 grams. One item. So, if you can keep up with the numbers, you can make your own calculations. I will summarize it in a bit. But now, on the 30th of January this year, so exactly a year after, I had 159.29 skeins of yarn remaining. That is 41,914.20 meters of yarn. That is 14,723 grams of yarn. All of that in 174 items of the spreadsheet. Now, added to that, in that year, what got used up, so got moved to that part of the spreadsheet, were 15.87 skeins of yarn. Gifted were 30.98 skeins of yarn. Both of those are over 5,000 meters. One is about 2,000 grams, the other about 3,000 grams. I won't be giving you these exact numbers, it's all too much already, I know. But from all of that, you can see that I have more items in that spreadsheet, but smaller amount of yarn. Because, and again, I will summarize in a while, at the start, I had about 17.6 kilos of yarn. And now, at the end of this 1 year period, I have about 14.7 kilos of yarn. Now, I did my calculations of the totals from last year and this year. I did all the math. There is a lot of it. I can show you if the camera is going to focus on here to summarize all of that. And again, I will put the numbers on screen so that you can visualize what happened in this past year. I bought some more yarn, and from what I can tell, I had almost 72 skeins more in the year than at the start. So I basically got or bought 72 more skeins, but I used up 112.56 of a skein of yarn, and now I have about 160-ish. I have 159.29 skeins of yarn. Now, in meters, I had almost 14,337.5 more meters during the year than at the start, but I used up 23,336.7 meters of yarn and ended up with 41,914.20 meters of yarn. I used up about 23 kilometers of yarn. Wow. And in grams, or kilograms if you want to, I had 7,622 grams more than at the start, but I used up 10,551 grams of yarn, and now I have 14,723 grams of yarn. Let that sink in. I used up freaking 10.5 kilos of yarn in the last year. Amazing, good job me. Yeah. Now, I actually did not. I gave away 3.2 kilos of yarn. I didn't do trades, but I gave away some of the yarn that was given to me before. I passed it on someone else. I also sold one tiny ball of yarn that someone needed to finish their project. So with all that, still, that's 7.3 kilos of yarn that I turned into things, makes, objects. More than 7 kilos of yarn passed through my hands and became something. So now, I know some other people do use this average imaginary ball of yarn as a measure of their stash. That was what actually inspired me to start this whole stash busting idea, was idea of Retro Claus, who uses mostly wool, and the wool ball of yarn in average is 50 grams, so she uses that measure for her stash busting. Thanks to the spreadsheet, I know that my average ball of yarn is about 94 grams. So let's call that a 100 gram ball of yarn. And I already talked about that a year ago. So my measurement of my stash is this ideal 100 gram ball of yarn. And if we use that, that means I have about 147 average balls of yarn, which is pretty good. Now, that also means that I used up more than 100 of those ideal balls of yarn in the last year. That sounds pretty promising. That sounds like I will be able to continue this stash busting, and I might end up with way less yarn in a year, hopefully, because I'm also on this no spend journey, no buy journey, which means I will be buying yarn if it is for a commission, for a paid commission, but I won't be getting yarn for myself unless my financial situation gets way better, which I don't have that prospect for this year. So I talked about this in my last video a bit, and it basically means I have a no-buy year ahead of me, and I'm actually looking forward to that because I have my stash over here and it looks like it's quite a lot of yarn, but it's diminishing, and I am left with yarns that I was always talking about that I want to use them, and I just need to get to it. And I'm already working on some stuff that I mentioned in my last video as well, but I can see the project sitting in there, in those boxes, in that yarn. I can see the potential basically of all those balls of yarn, and for many of them I have ideas already formed. It is always subject to change, you know, but I know what to do with quite a lot of them. So that's good. That's good. I like that. Also, I have other plans than crocheting, so some of the yarns are going to be used for other stuff, and some of them will stay here, or maybe they will get donated, I don't know. Maybe there will be an opportunity for me to trade something or give something away. We'll see about that. But for now, I need to address one embarrassing thing. When I tried to organize my stash and put everything into those registries at Ravelry, I forgot about something. So I will be adjusting my Ravelry stash registry, and I should tell you which ones are not in my spreadsheet and in my registry, although they were sitting in my stash this whole year. And one of them is a pretty embarrassing one in itself, because in my stash video from last year, it was something I did show you, something that I originally forgot about and then had to bring it back for the video. And it's something that I talked about again in my last video. It's something that I plan to use very soon. And that's those two rainbow yarn cakes. So my stash will be growing of half a kilo of yarn, of 2000 meters of yarn, because I simply forgot to enter these into my stash. Okay, those will get put into there, and then they'll get hopefully used for making a skirt. So this is one part of the shameful surprise, I'd say. And the other one is something that I mentioned in one of my videos as well in the last year, and I think I said there that it is not actually part of my stash because it's something dedicated to a craft that I'm not yet doing. But I think I should enter that into my Ravelry, and I should show you now. Excuse a bit of rustling. There are in total 3 balls of each color of this yarn. There is wool in it. That's also a problem. I might end up donating this because this was bought like 20 years ago when I asked my mom to make a scarf for me. It was meant to be a knitted striped scarf, and we chose this at a French supermarket near Bayonne in France, and it's polyamide wool and acrylic. There's quarter of wool in that, and I can already feel it in my hands that although it is quite soft, it is a bit itchy for me. So yeah, I'm always trying the yarn on my neck like this, and if there is wool in it, or if there is suspected wool in it, and I can feel the itch in there. So although it is a really pretty yarn, I might end up offering this to someone. So in the end, it might not be entering my stash, actually, my spreadsheets and my registry, but I will see. I'll have to decide about this. I used this yarn since, because my mom was in the end not able to knit that scarf for me. So in the meantime, I used it as a training yarn for myself, because during those 20 years I tried several times to learn knitting, and my brain just couldn't hold that skill, that information. And I know it's not that hard, and I am planning on learning knitting. I want to try again, and this time I want to stick with it. But then again, I want to stick with crochet as well. So there is this small piece of knitting that I used that yarn for when someone was teaching me how to do it. And it is pretty nice, I have to say. But it's all partly woolen yarn, so this might be actually leaving my stash. I didn't realize that before. So yeah, okay, that's actually good. That's actually a nice surprise. I was calling this my bag of shame, but it might not be. It might be a bag of surprise and a bag of gift to someone. We'll see about that. I have an idea of some people who might use that. So this is for the numbers. One thing that I did in this last year, and I didn't realize it at the start when I found this idea floating online, that I already did that in the years before. But for this previous year, I stashed away all the labels of the balls of yarn that I used up in my project. So in this Ziploc baggie, there are many labels from the yarn that I used up. It can really be used to count the amount of yarn that I used, because some of the balls of yarn didn't have labels, some of them were partial, some of them still have remainders with their labels sitting in my stash. So it's not that straightforward, but if I can get it out of the bag, I can show you the amount of labels that I stored in this past year from the yarn that I used. And seeing those labels and seeing the names of yarns, I can see basically the projects that I made. There are the labels from the Iris sweater, there are labels from the polo stripes, also from the ice yarns that I made the ruffle hats out of, and from some of the chenille yarns that I used for the loaf cats, and all of that, there should be also, yes, there they are, labels from the Melinda yarn for the moss stitch cardigan that I made for my mother-in-law. So the labels basically are memories of the projects that I made, but I will be tossing them away. I won't be keeping this, I just kept it to show you, because it's quite a nice idea to keep it for a year and see how much you've used up, but it's kind of crazy to keep it for longer, which you'll see I'm kind of crazy, because I recently found the labels from the previous years, from the years before 2024. So there is this pack. Many of those are the Himalaya Everydays from my hexagon cardigans, and there is also this bag full of labels, and there are many of the Alize Velluto ones in there. So those I will be tossing as well, but I just wanted to show you that one way to keep track a bit of your projects during the year is saving the labels. Now, at the start of this video, you've probably seen a montage of the boxes of my yarn as piled at our kitchen wall. And you might have noticed that they are mostly all of the same boxes from last year, but that some of them have quite a lot of free space in them. That is because, although I'm trying to save space, I also want to have them organized by the type of yarn. And yes, I did buy a lot of chenille yarns, which I didn't have before, but I also gave them a special home in a big box that I have, and I will be organizing some of the chenille yarns that are roaming around in here in my stash. I will be putting them into that box to keep them all together. I have some commissions to make out of those, but until I get to them, they should be sitting in that box. Now, if you'd like to, I will show you again those boxes, and you can go back to my video from last year, also from September of 2024, when I did a small reorganization, and you can compare how much there is or how much there is not of yarn in those boxes, and you'll see that the difference is really visible, which again is something that I'm really happy about. I was kind of worried. I tried to save space and put different types of yarn into one box, but I wasn't happy with that. It also doesn't work for my knowing where stuff is, because if I have a box dedicated to variegated yarns, I know where to look for yarn that I need for a project, and if I have a box for unicolor acrylics, I know where to go to find again stuff that I need at that moment. So for now I kept it like that, and I also have some bags of yarn that is sort of waiting for its time for a project that I have in mind, but that I haven't started yet. So I might be putting that back in the box where it belongs, basically, so that it doesn't clutter my storage space. But I will do that off camera, of course. But now, if you want to take a small tour of my stash with me, without much explaining, but telling you a bit about each of those boxes, come along, follow along with the video, and I will show you. So first, as you might pretty well know, are my Alize Bella Solid and Alize Bella Batik yarns, which live in these two boxes. Whee! And they are not sorted by variegated and solids, they are sorted by color groups, and they're packed together in bags of matching yarns. There are also some other cotton yarns like the Camilla ones, so this is one of the box. There used to be mostly the warmish colors, but the Camillas are slightly different from that. And there are the cooler ones in the other box. with many of the rainbow ones, which I just love. So there is still a lot of yarn to go through. I plan on doing some summerish wear with that, but we'll see if I manage to get to it this year. We'll see. Then there is this big, huge box of yarn cakes, and these two should be living in here, but I do have them out as motivation for the skirt, and I'm really looking forward to starting that, so they will probably be staying out. But in the box there used to be yarn cakes up to the top, and I had trouble closing the box in the last video. So now you'll see that there is so much space that they are rolling around, basically. You can see from the side, maybe, yeah, this way, that there is basically a whole level of yarn cakes missing. If I put them a bit in order, this one is losing his label. That's the Acurs. And I have my glow-in-the-dark yarn also in here because there is no other better space for it. But there is one whole level of yarn cakes missing. Now, of course, these two should be in there, and the cake that I'm using for the shawl should be in there, and the one that I'll be using for the top should be in there as well. So there is basically just 3 spots for yarn cakes, but that's still, I used up something. So that's great, and there are still such pretty colors in there. I mean, the Riga one, wow. We can take a stash tour in detail again sometime, but this is how the box looks like for now. Now, there is this fabric bag, which is really handy, and in it are some balls of yarn that are waiting for the planned project. You've seen this bag already. That's for Mumsy's Yarny project, and there is also my ribbon loom packed away in this bag, and there are also some chenille yarns in it. There is black and white, there is this cream one. So those are waiting for projects, and I will be probably keeping this bag as it is. Maybe the chenille yarns will get put in their respective box. I'll see about that. What is going to be also put into the box, but maybe just for a while because I need to test this, are these Dolce Maxis chenille yarns. There are 2 black ones and this one for the tortoise shell cat. And I have some ideas about that. I need to consult it with Jad, who ordered it for me. So we'll see about that, but you will see in a bit that there is space in the box of chenille yarns for that. So that's promising. Now, oh, there is one more that I need to put in my stash. I forgot about this because that was yarn that Blanca ordered for that mandala vest, and I kept it out of my stash spreadsheet because I thought I would use all of that up, and in the end there is a remainder of that very pretty colorway. I absolutely love it, and she basically said that she'll think of something that she'll have me make out of this, but for now we don't know. So I'll be putting this into my stash registry. I will keep it here to not forget. But otherwise, this is my box of variegated yarns, the bigger ones. You can see some of the acrylics there, the red heart stripes, there are some, whoa, avalanche. There are some Bella Batiks at the bottom. This way it might work, maybe. Yeah, Bella Batiks in there. So this is my box of joy, basically. I am planning on using the remainders of these red heart stripes to make some more 6-part hats, maybe. There is a small remainder as well. I'll see how it is gonna combine. It should work together. And there is a bigger remainder of the blue one and the red one, so ideas. Those colorful variegated yarns always give me the best of ideas. I just love them. Anyways, those are the variegated ones, and there is a box of the monocolors, the solid ones. And you can see it looks a bit like a mess. There is more layers to it. Last time I used these two, so that's why they're on the top. There are also the Ellen babies and the big bag of Katja that I still need to use up because I thought I would use more of it for the kaleidoscope top and I didn't. Then there is this yarn which totally calls my mom's name, but we don't have an idea for that, and it's a limited amount, so we need to choose something that is not gonna be stressful in the yarn chicken department. And then at the bottom it's already better visible there, thanks. Those are all the Himalaya Everyday acrylics, a bit of the Lisa one, and some Czech yarns like Maya and Aya and Batula. So those are pretty nice assortment of colors, and I have some ideas for them, for some of them, not all of them, we'll see. But yeah, that should work. I'll put it right back and I'll be with you in a moment. Now, again, there are 2 boxes of similar yarns, and they are something that I already talked about in my last stash video. The cotton acrylic mixes that I got from someone who was destashing basically, and there's one merino in it. I still don't know if I'm going to be able to use that, but the rest are again sorted to the warm-ish colors in one box and cooler ones in the other one, although there is brown. But those are ideal for the mesh bags and for other small projects, even small amigurumi animals, but the mesh bags are basically the best stash busting project for these ones. So I'm planning, and again I'm not sure if I will be able to, but I'm planning on making several of the mesh bags. I have several tutorials or patterns found for that, and one of them is going again to be my tutorial for the mesh bag. It's coming closer, I'll make it. I promise. I'm making some tweaks on a written pattern because I want to release a written pattern along with it so that you can have a video tutorial and a written pattern for the mesh bag. So I hope to be using these as well as the Camillas for the bags. And you might have noticed with those cotton and acrylic yarns blend ones that again there is more space in those boxes than there was, and I'm really happy that I used up some of that, and I will be continuing doing that, hopefully to the point of using them all up. Now there is this box of yarn which is mostly all inherited or was given to me by my mom, and it's all packed in those bags so that it's separated in color families basically. Unfortunately, some of it seems to be also wool blend, so again I might be offering some of those to some of my friends who can use those, but those are just yarns that I don't have really plans for. I already tried to sell or trade these or swap these, but I only got rid of one bigger ball out of this and one bag of a specific synthetic yarn. So yeah, this box is a bit of a forgotten thing, but you can see there is space in it. It's not really full as it used to be, so there is progress. And now there is this huge box. And I specifically chose this big box that we already had, and it was empty because the chenille yarns, they just occupy so much space. They're chunky, they're soft, and they don't like to be squished. And also I have a bag of stuffing in here, so this is basically the starter box for plushies. I also have my bag of safety eyes in here stored with them, so that it's all in one place for plushie making. And you can see there is the stuffing in the back and all of the chenille yarns in the box. And as you can see, it's sort of third empty. About a third of it is empty, so I'll be able to stuff some more chenille yarns in here. Usually I actually store my finished objects that are available for sale or as gifts for people in here, but for now I think I will put the chenille yarns that are outside of this box inside there and keep it as the plushie box, the amigurumi box for love cats and stuff. And you can see there is quite a lot of the chenille yarn still, and you can imagine that it is the most grams and meters and skeins of yarn, and that when I make a love cat or 2 or 10 that I will get so much more yarn used up and out of my Ravelry stash and my spreadsheet. It will make me happy to do that, so I should do that really soon to just use up more yarn, because the average ball of chenille yarn is again 100 grams, so this is my average ball of yarn, and it has 120 meters, and I can basically make 2 love cats out of this. So going through all of that, you can see there are probably many plushies in the future, many mesh bags in the future, and some summer wear and some hats as well. And I'm really looking forward to making all of that. Of course, there is the shawl that I already started, the skirt and the top that are planned out of the yarn cakes, and there are still more yarn cakes to go through, and I'm not sure I will be able to use all of that up in the upcoming year. You've heard me talk about me going back to work this year, so there might be less time, but again, I repeat, in the last year I managed to use up more than 100 skeins of yarn out of my stash. So I'm hoping that this year I'll be able to use up at least half of that. That would be 50 balls of yarn out of my stash. Maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to get rid of half of my stash, which would be about 75 skeins of yarn. So we'll see in a year how that's gonna go. We will get back to this in a year in another video, and in the meantime I will have all the updates for you. I will have all the project reports and live updates for you, so please keep following my videos, keep watching. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing and using the subscription page on YouTube, not the homepage or For You page, which just serves you garbage basically, but use the subscriptions page to see stuff from the people you are subscribed to first time when it gets posted, because that's basically the only way to do that. Anyways, thank you so very much for watching, for commenting, for liking this video. Stay tuned for the next one, and for now, have a great time. Enjoy crafting, enjoy creating, and enjoy the colors. Goodbye. Vysmrkávam myšlenky.